We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's peak around the corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Do not forget to ring the notification bell. If you want to support this independent national college football's rebel outpost with a donation to help us keep the lights on and grow the channel, just hit that $sign where you make a comment and I will get you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. It has been a very busy day here in the studios of college football's Peak Around the Corner. We did an episode from members only, our beloved members here at Peak Around the Corner. We did an early peek Cloak and Dagger episode number 69. We will cover that for everybody in the back half of this monologue. We also did an episode about the new Purdue Boilermaker athletic director. Go check that episode out. That is episode 520. We will cover that if somebody wants to call in or does a super chat on it. We'll talk about it. Not really part of our live show. Tonight, we are going to talk about the very bad day that the Protect the College Sports Act had. No question about it. A very bad day. There's all these forces that are rising up against it. Some of them are probably honest on why they're against it. Some of this is just politics. Some of this is you do not want to hand the other political party a possible victory, not wanting to give the president a possible victory. This goes with both parties. We are going into an election cycle, midterm elections. And there's people rising against this for honest to goodness reasons. And those who are supporting this believe this is our last chance. And we got to get this vote done. They know that time kills deals, like Ross Dellinger has reported a couple of times here in the last couple of days. There has been some attempts to get this vote going, to get it through the process as quick as possible. One of those attempts completely failed earlier today. Let's take a look at that. And then we'll go to the roll call. I just want to give you an example. Earlier today, it was reported that the Senate GOP leaders ran a hotline for the NIL bill, which is the PCSA bill, this morning. They were gauging the interest. They wanted to see if nobody objected to a quick vote. Now, they did not think that they did not believe that they were going to be able to run this through without any objections, but they just wanted to test the waters. Pete Knuckles reports another step for the Protect the College Sports Act with Senate leaders running a hotline. Good way to measure the bill's support. Well, then it finally got reported. Jacob Wendler. Two people familiar tell me that there were 11 objections to the time agreement for the PCSA, further minimizing the chances the bill gets a floor vote before recess. The bill still faces skeptics on both sides of the aisle. It, for a bill like this to have a chance of passing, it was always going to have to thread the needle just perfectly. They ran into a lot of problems today. Let me go through the roll call. And then I'm going to go through... I think I will start with what we reported in our early Pete Cloak and Dagger episode earlier today. And then we'll table the discussion. And then I'm going to go through a fun and interesting article coming out of the USA Today. And then we'll get back into this momentous, epic, historic event that we're living through right now. Can the PCSA, can they get it voted on the Senate? Can they pass it in the Senate and kick it to the House? We shall see. Helmer Hennessy, the Big Ten. Helmer Hennessy, $5 holler. He has started us off. Thank you so much. The Big Ten has done well in Wild Wild West. If it isn't broken, why try to fix it? Because the wild, wild west, there is no cost certainty. It is driving people crazy, and they cannot enforce their own rules. It's called instability. Plus, the Big Ten, they don't want private equity to come in and destroy their conference, just like the ACC doesn't want their conference to get poached. The Big Ten doesn't want their conference to get poached, but it might. Remember, this PCSA bill doesn't let these private equity companies come in, these big banks, and say, we'll take this. Well, this over here, this over there, we'll form our own conference, and then the Big Ten is laying, just like what happened to the Pac-12. The Big Ten, I keep, now for me, I don't think that should be disallowed. I'm for freedom of association. If you want to waive the private equity ban, if you want to join that sort of consortium, that association, if that's what you truly want, if you think that's going to work best for the institution, I think you should have the freedom to do that. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to fail. It could work the first 5 years. It could fail within the next 15 years. But getting back to the point, this bill would kind of lock in the Big Ten as one of the two premier, the biggest, baddest, most valuable conferences in the country for however long until this bill would get changed by Congress. Again, a lot of this is what the Big Ten wanted. And the SEC wanted. Now, they did not want, I hear, I see people say, well, this is what the 19 number, the Big Ten proposed this number, or they really don't object to this number. They object to it. Tony Petitti has said that. He told that in CBS Sports. We covered that. But they also had to pick a priority list. They wanted stability. They want to be able to enforce their own rules. They want an antitrust exemption. And it's sometimes it took, what is the saying? It took Richard Nixon to open China. Sometimes you are the wrong voice on the wrong subject. The freedom of association argument, to be able to argue, yeah, we should be able to have the right to have whoever we want as members of our private nonprofit organization, it is probably best served that argument doesn't get forcefully put out by the Big Ten or the SEC. That banner, that fight has to be somebody else's. Now, the Big Ten objected to it. They were not in favor of it. But there were other priorities that they had to get locked into the bill. The Big Ten has done well in the wild, wild west, but I think the Big Ten would look at it as, we've done very good in this new era where student athletes are getting paid directly by the schools. That NIL, all that is happening. But I think the Big Ten believes they would do very, very well in that same type of environment, but where there are rules, governance, enforcement, a cap, a rising cap, but a cap. I think they believe they would do well in that type of world as well. So, now, having said all of that, there are people publicly who are not everybody's probably being clear with their motivations on this bill. Um, there are probably some who are for this bill publicly, but they probably want to have it defeated in private. I remember the Big Ten was not really the Big Ten. None of these conferences were 100%. Well, I should not say all of it. The Big 12, you might have had every school in support of it, but I don't think you had every school in the SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC in support of this bill. But their conferences have taken the position to support the bill. The Big Ten and the SEC do not want to get the blame if it doesn't pass. Yeah, and it's obvious that some schools truly do not want this thing to get out of the Senate, out of the House, and in front of President Trump's desk. And we talked about it. We'll get back into that in the early Pete Cloak and Dagger episode. We'll talk about it more here in a little bit. Thank you, Hammer Henderson. Thank you for your $5 holler. Thank you for starting us off today. I appreciate it. We've got Noel Berman. One more thing on the Hammer Henderson question. In regards to the PCSA and going into the silos, there are some true believers in the Big Ten and the SEC on going to the silos. They think that this can work. The commissioners are not pro-silo, but again, that position doesn't really ferment a leader to be silo, right? They're working with all the conferences all the time. They're working with the NCAA. But there are true believers in these conferences about going in the silo. They have done a lot of work on what that would look like. All of that is true. It's been true for months. One of the examples is in going silo, it is incredibly risky. It's daunting, and they would rather not. The majority would rather not do it in both conferences. But there are voices in those conferences that really want to give it a crack. And they're probably going to give it a crack. Or they're probably going to push that envelope if and when this PCSA doesn't pass and get signed into law before the end of 2026. One of those items that both the Big Ten and the SEC have been working on, and it is a 20,000 piece puzzle, is the player compensation part of it, and what type of representation in your silo can the student athletes receive without being employees and without unionization. So if this thing doesn't pass, and if they go into the silo, even if it's the green verde, the mild salsa, that Sankey and Petiti put the chip in the dip, it's probably going to have involved the whole player compensation in some sort of representation. They have to make some sort of effort in getting that done. Anyways, we'll talk about all that. Thank you, Hemmer Henderson. Thank you for the $5 holler. Very much appreciated, sir. Very much appreciated. Noah Berman, $2 holla. Great. Why does BYU let Bear cosplay as a punter? I'm going to take that question in a whole different direction. Thank you, Noel Berman. Thank you for the $2 holler. I think Bear Bachmeier can do whatever he wants. I know you are part of a Ute. You're a Ute, a duck and a Ute. I get it. Or I know you're pro Utah Ute to some extent. I think Bear Bachmeier is Superman. I think he can punt. I think he can be the field goal kicker. I think he can probably play left tackle. I think he can do it all. But my question is, and I know I'm going to be accused. I know I'm going to be accused of being a secret BYU homer. I am not. I think the BYU Cougars are as evil as any other football team out there, with the exception of the Badgers and the Hawkeyes. They're a little bit more evil than anybody else. I'm not a BYU homer. But I will say this. They are getting disrespected like crazy. What is going on? Honestly. Like, even from the national guys, even from these credible college football outlets. Unbelievable. What's his name? Elliott, the Florida State guy, the guy on Cover 3 podcast. Bud Elliott, excuse me. Bud Elliott. By the way, he, and I've said this story before, for transparency, Bud Elliott blocked me on X a couple of years ago over a complete misunderstanding. I asked him a question and he thought I was dogging him, and he went into my direct messages and he read me the riot act, and I'm like, what is going on here? Before I could respond, he had me blocked. And then I've heard he's done that to a lot of people, but you know, I like listening to the Cover 3 podcast. And I listen to Bud Elliott and Cannell, and I love Chip, and I really love Tom Fernelli. I think they do a great job. But Bud Elliott came out with it, and I know we're just doing our poll rankings. I mean, all of you give me shots on my predictions. That's all fine. We have a lot of fun with it. But he puts out a ranking, college football rankings of the top 25. His top 25 college football rankings. And he only listed 19 of them because he did not feel good about listing any more schools than 19. And BYU wasn't one of the 19. But he's not the only one. What am I missing? Now, I get there's two ways. There are two ways to do a poll. One, when you do your poll, you are polling on what you think, what is deserved at the moment. That's how I do my polls, if I do them. I don't really do them that often, if you've noticed. I do predictions. I really don't do current time polls. Maybe I'll do that before the week 0 to say this is PATC top 25. If I do that, it's going to be on what I think is deserved. Not necessarily what I think is going to end at the end of the season. I would not do that. Some do what is deserved. Some do projections on their power rankings or whatever. But I don't care if it's deserved or if it's based on projections or whatever. How can you have BYU not in the top 25? How can you have BYU not in the top 20? Have I fallen in love with Bill Bachmeier just a little bit too much? Probably. But they're all Big 12 running back. That coaching staff. That defense. I don't get it. I am lost why BYU. And it's not. And BYU is like the number one team that's getting disrespected. And I talked about this when I showed the coaches poll. Now you got me all fired up. The other team that's getting disrespected is Louisville. Louisville. They've won 9 games over the last 3 years. 9 games each last 3 years. At least 9 games. They've got an incredible backfield. Now, I've heard rumors that Isaac Brown might be nicked up a little bit again. But they've got... Why are they being left out of the coaches poll? That's another one I don't understand. And I don't get why Miami's 7 and not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, again, I think the Big 12 and the ACC. Look, and people are saying, Greg, you're overreacting. But I can kind of see it here. I get it. The Big 10, the best conference in the country, or the SEC is the best conference in the country. I think the Big 10 is, but whatever. Big 10, SEC, but I think the Big 12 and the ACC are getting they're getting an elbow. I think they're going to be, they are undervalued. Especially in the Big 12. The ACC, I think they have and I've said this before, this year I do think the conference as a whole has a huge problem at the quarterback position. I've been honest about that. I did a quarterback ranking of every conference. I said these are the rankings of the ACC quarterbacks, the Big 12 quarterbacks, SEC, and the Big 10. And that ACC quarterback ranking, once you get past number 6 or 7, whoo, baby. But the top of the conference in the ACC, SMU, Louisville, and of course Miami in California, maybe Clemson, but the Big 12 is being completely undervalued. Now, for the Big 12, we said this before, you got to get it done in the playoffs because that narrative is starting to hurt the entire brand of the Big 12 and it's starting to hurt individual schools. The Red Raiders should be higher than number 12. They should be ranked in the top 10. My goodness. All right, I'm out. Just one little question about BYU has set me off. Thank you, Noel Berman. I appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. We've got Christopher Hooter, $5 holla. Yes, let the obvious candidates, Florida State, Georgia Tech, not the SEC and the Big 10, take the heat for killing or challenging the bill. That's a win for the P2. Thank you, Christopher Hooter. Thank you for the $5 holler. Mr. Purple and Gold, thank you so much for your generosity once again, sir. I very much appreciate it. Yeah, I mean... it's a there is some strange bedfellows in this whole ordeal politically on Capitol Hill when it comes to certain schools and certain conferences. I do think there are certain schools in the Big Ten that would not have a problem with this bill passing the way it is. Even though they have gamed out and war gamed the next targeted expansion of the Big Ten Conference, and that has happened. Oh, it has happened. I was listening to Bo Bishop's show. Paul Feinbaum was on there today, and they only talked a little bit about the PCSA, but Bo Bishop asked Paul Feinbaum about the 19-5 provision. This happened today, and Bishop said, I get a feeling, Paul Feinbaum, that that the Big Ten they would rather have another targeted expansion. Targeted, add another, he didn't say another couple, but he said a targeted expansion, while the SEC is pretty much okay where they are. And Paul Feinbaum once again said, North Carolina is something that, he barely said anything about it, so I'm paraphrasing it, but he mentioned North Carolina as something that would help out the SEC. And so that is, the SEC, again, they've had a lot of talks with these potential expansion candidates. But if the SEC know that the Big Ten was going to stay at 18 and could not grow past 18, the SEC may want to live how it is, knowing that the Big Ten cannot grow. But overall, I think both conferences would want, in a perfect world, to be able to control their own destiny totally. They have complete sovereignty, as much sovereignty as possible. But without antitrust exemption, they do not control their own destiny anyway. So they really wanted to get that done. They might have fallen short, just like everybody else, because this PCSA had a very bad day today. Thank you, Christopher Hooter. Thank you for the $5 holler. And we've got Andrew French. $5 holler. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate your generosity. Thank you, so very kind. I appreciate it. I want to do a quick roll call. I'm a little late on it. Chef Mohr is in the house. The Big Lubbock. Friends, call me Sean. Runs with Scissors. John Dry is in the house. Cal Bears is here. Kenneth Maynor is here. David Kreitzer. MBM Jose is in the house. Kenneth Maynor is here. Mama Duck, Clemson Tiger. Leslie Hill. Storming Back You is in the house. Amy is here. Bob Swinger. Bob Swinger is in the house. Buckeye Greg. Yogi Buck. Thanks for coming on in, Yogi Buck. Appreciate it. Jason Spangler hasn't seen the Rock Chalk Jayhawk for a while. Thanks for coming back in. The Buckshot Kid. Buckshot Kid is in the house. My goodness. RT is here. All right, if I missed you, I apologize. Very, very much apologize. I'm so humbled and thankful that anybody would want to join the fat guy from Minnesota on this beautiful August 6th. It's a beautiful day to talk college football. Before before we swing back into this major story that is going on. It's going on right now as we do our live show. Going on right now. You see Ted Cruz, he's in a parade, PCSA labeled on his car, and you've got a roadblock. You've got a roadblock on that parade. The House, the Senate recess is coming up, and the Congressional Black Caucus has made their voice known. And within the Congressional Black Caucus, there is a certain senator who's made his voice known that he is against the PCSA. And it's a senator in which we discussed, not by name, but by state, in that early peak Cloak and Dagger episode 69 of earlier this morning. Yep. There is a lot of voices for a lot of different reasons, and they're not going to express all of the reasons that they're against the bill. But in hot Atlanta, in GA, there is a lot of people who are starting to turn away from PCSA. But before we get back into that, I do, look, Notre Dame Irish fans out there, I love you. You know I love you. I love my Big 12 brothers and sisters. I love my ACC brothers and sisters. I love my SEC brothers and sisters. I even love my Big 10 brothers and sisters, and even those evil Hawkeyes and the Badgers. I love the Irish. I do. I mean, I love them, but you're evil. And once again, you seem to be able to be more powerful than anybody else out there. This bill, especially the 19 and 5, was written for you. So, I came across this article, and just to give you an elbow back, fighting Irish, to give you an elbow back, we turn to the true American hero, the hero that we did not know that we needed at this time, Mr. Matt Hayes. The new generation of disdain. Gen Z discovering the joy of hating Notre Dame. Would you look at that? The inevitable has arrived and transcended time. Old is new again. Notre Dame, just being Notre Dame, has birthed a new generation of hate. If there truly is a fine line between envy and jealousy, and you make me want to puke, Gen Z college football fans are quickly and painfully figuring out what millennials, Gen X, and boomers have known all along. There are different rules for Notre Dame because no one, not Ohio State, not Texas, not Alabama, not even the entire big bad SEC moves the needle quite like the Irish. Love them or hate them, there's nothing else like them. But this new generation of hate doesn't care about the minutia of the how and the why, especially while its visual quickly turns visceral. They see, they hate. They don't care about what went into the favorable access negotiated with the college football playoff. They don't care about the television advertising dollars or the Nielsen ratings or how just the whiff of Notre Dame changes every fall Saturday. They're visual. And they see two things. Notre Dame doesn't play in the SEC or the Big Ten and face the best competition in college football. And Notre Dame essentially gets a free ride to the big party at the end of the season. They see a Notre Dame independent schedule that begins with 8 body bags before Miami shows up in South Bend on November 7th. A schedule that includes the 4 worst teams from the ACC in 2025, North Carolina, Stanford, Boston College, and Syracuse, in 8 home or neutral site games. And don't kid yourself. Those neutral site games are Notre Dame home games. They are, because of all you crazy domers out there. They see the unveiling of the preseason U.S. coaches poll earlier this week. And they see Notre Dame planted at number 5 and are forced to accept the reality that its path to the playoff is a layup line. They see an Ohio State schedule that from the middle of October until Thanksgiving weekend includes games at Indiana, USC, Oregon, and Michigan at home. That's 4 top 16 teams in the preseason poll. Compare the Buckeyes schedule to the Fighting Irish. An Ohio State schedule that also includes a September non-conference game against number 4 Texas. An Illinois team, look it up, I'm not kidding, won 19 games over the past 2 seasons. They see every SEC schedule, pick a team, any team, and can come to only one reasonable conclusion. Notre Dame hate. Welcome to the club, younglings. Check your jealousy, envy, at the door. Imagine if you will. Imagine having an annual rivalries with Stanford and Navy, and then ending an annual rivalry with Michigan more than a decade ago because of a deal with the middling ACC that gives you nearly half of your schedule every season. Imagine haggling with Southern California, USC, over one of the top 3 rivalries in the sport and then ending it before deciding it to resume it 4 years later. Gen Z doesn't care about Notre Dame's ability to dictate when and where it will play on national television, and how with its NBC media rights deal earns as much annually as SEC and the Big Ten teams, or that with a deep CFP run makes more than the SEC and the Big Ten teams. In other words, we don't need your stinking conference. We don't need to play in an elite conference where every week is a grind and everyone knows your personnel year after year after year after year, and every road game is a 50-50 nightmare where Indiana and Vanderbilt and Ole Miss or any other formidable, lovable loser can hire the right coach, throw hundreds of millions at a program, and rise to the elite of the game, and you've got to deal with them. Imagine, if you will, Ohio State or Alabama or Georgia annually playing the 5 ACC games, 6 this fall. Navy, Rice, and a rotation of Purdue and Michigan State, and still receiving a deal of deals that stipulates a ranking within the top 12 by the CFP selection committee is an automatic entry into the party. The Buckeyes don't have that. If the Buckeyes finish 12th, they're not in the playoffs. If Georgia finishes 12th, they're not in the playoffs, as long as the G6 team is not in the top 12. But the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, if they finish 12th, they're in. incredible. Or playing 6 ACC teams last season, and Navy, Purdue, Boise State, and losing your two toughest games, Miami and Texas A&M, and whining about not being selected to the CFP. Listen to your dad, Gen Z, or his dad, or his dad's dad. Envy or jealousy, it all ends the same way. A new generation of hate. Matt Hayes, USA Today. Look, again, I just wanted, no, that was more fun. That's the way it is. Notre Dame, I love you. You're the Fighting Irish. I'm a Catholic. I'm an Irish. That's the way it is. But I'm a Golden Gopher, above and beyond anything else. And Notre Dame is this PCSA was written for you. So to balance it all off, I just wanted to read off that Matt Hayes' article. I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was really well written. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. We've got a $10 holler. $10 holler from the Gator, Maynor, the Pirate, Kenneth Maynor. Boom. The Irish are the original villain, always fighting with the newly turned heel Big Ten. Heel on heel violence. For most of the audience, I think that is true. I think most people look at if you're outside of the Big Ten country and you're not a Notre Dame fan, you're looking at the Fighting Irish playing a Big Ten team. You're probably going, well, I don't care what happens in this game. I want both teams to lose. I would agree with that, Kenneth Maynor. Thank you for the $10 holler. Heel on heel violence. But one of those heels is trying to get the other heel to join their faction. And they've been trying for 80 years. However, if this PCSA passes, the walls are not closing in on Notre Dame anymore. The walls of a collapsed ACC is not going to happen. So, the Irish are really, well, the Irish has a potential of their biggest victory, the PCSA. However, there have been huge roadblocks thrown in the way, and we're going to talk about that right now. Thank you, Kenneth Maynor. I appreciate the $10 holler, helping us keep the lights on to grow the channel. Thank you very much. Before we get into the big story, I do want to remind everybody, August 14th, we have moved up the date per production reasons, because I got to get myself prepared for the season. We have moved up the date to August 14th. August 14th is the last day that we will accept an I do declared bold prediction that gets an evaluation from 1 through 5 about a prediction that's going to happen during the season. OPD Don was the very first one that made a prediction. LSU and Ole Miss game viewership 12 million. We gave that a 3-point valuation. I probably should have been more. Who knows? Badgers win the Axe. Ryan Willie. Illinois goes to the CFP. Illini Ted. Kiffin will win more playoff games than Ole Miss. Brooks. Fleck will lead Minnesota to join Florida State before Minnesota's first college football playoff. Jacoby Cat. A lot of fun predictions. But a lot of them are just bold, crazy predictions. Fickle will return to the Cincinnati fired American champ will make the CFP. Mohr. Bear Bachmeier wins the Heisman. Dante Mohr wins the Heisman. A Big 12 team makes the Final Four. So we've got a whole bunch of fun predictions here. So if there's any more that are coming in to try to be the first annual CFB college football, I do declare world champion. And that gets determined at the end of the national championship game. All results are final on your prediction. If your prediction comes true the next day, you still get it wrong. In other words, if you say a coach is going to get fired, they have to get fired before the end of the national championship game. So there it is. You got to August 14th. August 14th. Jason Spangler, Greg, will you live stream the first college football game to be played in England on September 19th? Kansas and Arizona State should be lit. Possibly. If I'm able to. If I'm able. What time does that game start, Jason Spangler? Central Time, where you are, Kansas and Minnesota. Let me know. I really do not make those decisions until early in the week of the football games. My dad was a Notre Dame fan. Mohr Simmons is in the house. BYU football, sit down and explain they wanted to go to the Big Ten, and Michigan said no. All right. We watched the Dan Devine show a lot on Sunday mornings. Dan Devine. I remember those days. All right. The I do declares do have to come in on a super chat. It can be a 99 super chat, $2 super chat. The proceeds go to the Minnesota Special Olympics. My father is a what? What type of fan is your father? MBM? All right. Thank you for the 160 people are in the chat. Here we go. My oh my. My oh my. PCSA with a very, very bad day. It's not really breaking news because this was reported a couple of hours ago, but we got to put up the breaking news banner on this. The Congressional Black Caucus statement on the Senate consideration of the Protect the College Sports Act. Now, we're not going to read through this whole announcement from the Black Caucus, but I would advise you to read it all. The Black Caucus is saying no. And what is really important on this is they're saying no for a couple of reasons. One, the biggest reason is nothing about us without us. In other words, I know this is very difficult to read, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. But again, The student athletes were not really invited to the table on figuring out this PCSA, right? They were not a voice in creating the PCSA. And I'm just going to read you this back half of it. The Congressional Black Caucus has I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I urge everybody to read the whole thing. The Congressional Black Caucus has consistently advocated for stronger rights, protections, and economic opportunities for black athletes in a broader ecosystem that supports them. We have sought stronger athlete protections, greater transparency and accountability, meaningful representation in the governance of college athletics, and the policies that expand and not limit opportunities for black athletes, black coaches, black agents, black entrepreneurs, and HBCUs. Those priorities are not meaningful reflected in the legislation before the Senate. Instead, the so-called Protect the College Sports Act grants sweeping new legal protections to powerful institutions while failing to adequately protect the athletes whose talent fuels this multi-billion-dollar industry. It falls short of providing black athletes with the rights, representation, economic opportunities, and meaningful safeguards they deserve, while also failing to adequately recognize the interests of black coaches, black agents, HBCUs, and other professionals whose futures would be shaped by this legislation. Those concerns have also been echoed by the NAACP and a broad coalition of athlete advocates, labor organizations, civil rights organizations, and public interest organizations, urging the Senate not to advance this legislation in current form. We will not be a party to strengthening powerful institutions while they remain silent as black political representation is decimated. Congress should not determine the economic future of black athletes while ensuring they and communities they come from have a meaningful voice throughout the process. This is the key one here when it comes to the politics of it. Senate Democrats now have both the opportunity and the responsibility to insist that this legislation reflects the interests of black athletes, HBCUs, and communities it most directly affects. We urge our Democratic colleagues to use their leverage to ensure these concerns are addressed before this legislation advances any further. All right, so here's the deal on this. And I'm just going to use a broad political brush, all right? The Congressional Black Caucus, when the the SCORE Act was introduced in the House, the Congressional Black Caucus says this doesn't work for us. And that really put that bill, it was going to be almost or maybe impossible to get 60 senators, enough Democratic senators to support the SCORE Act. After it comes out of the House, it would have to go to the Senate, correct? And then you would have to get 60 votes even to vote on it or to pass it. You can't just do majority vote in the Senate. So the Congressional Black Caucus basically put a wall up in front of the SCORE Act and basically told everybody we were not going to get this bill passed because the House bill was never going to be able to satisfy what the Congressional Black Caucus would want and other Democratic leaders would want, and potentially a couple of Republican legislators. It wasn't going to go that far left. Not this bill, not at this time. Now you got a bill that is a little bit more politically, and I say this with broad political statement here, brush. that this bill is a little bit more left of the SCORE Act. If they're trying to thread the needle. Cantwell and Cruz and other people who support this, and the senator of Colorado has come out in support of this. A Democratic senator of Colorado has supported this today. They're a co-sponsor. A Republican senator of Nebraska Rickert has come out in support of this bill. So there is some success at threading the needle, getting enough support here, enough support there. But if you move this bill a couple of degrees off to the left or to the right, you're not going to get that needle thread. You're going to fail. And the Congressional Black Caucus is basically saying, look, we need more we need to have player representation in this bill somehow. And that's not going to happen in this bill. Because if it did, it would not pass. Especially at this late in time. So now the question is are you going to see Democratic senators starting to step away from this PCSA? Maybe they will not get 60 votes. Or if they do get 60 votes, it's not going to be enough. Or maybe they save face and they don't even put this up for a vote. They wait to the Senate August recess. Again, it's a very bad day for the passage of the PCSA. You did not get everybody to support the quick vote on this. We talk about the quick strike. We talk about the quick strike when it comes to possible expansion. Ted Cruz was looking for the quick vote, and that did not work out. And now we're sitting here on a Thursday night, August 6th. Friday is going to be a huge day. They got to get everything passed, the budget bill, everything else passed. And is the Senate going to wait around to Saturday to get the vote on the PCSA? Especially when you got the Congressional Black Caucus being so for against it. Now let me add another thing. In our early peak cloak and dagger, episode 69, that we put out early this morning for members. If you are a member if you buy a membership to this program, we thank you very much. There's a lot of people that give gift memberships in our program. Once in a while, we put out an early peak cloak and dagger. We give you a little bit of information before it drops, before we talk about it live, a nugget of info that we've come across. Let's get into that. Let's get into that right now. We are getting deep in the weeds, but we have to here. Thomas Coker, I do declare $5 holler. I do declare that Wisner scores 20 plus touchdowns this upcoming season, and Chroma scores 8 touchdowns this season. Deuce at Robinson adds 10 touchdowns this upcoming season. Okay, I'm gonna have to break that up into. I'm gonna have to break that up into 3 different I do declares. Okay, because to get all those 3 correct, and you're just not going to be able to do that. And I want you to have a chance, Thomas, to come out of here with some points. On Wisner scoring 20 plus TDs this upcoming season, I'm going to give you evaluation of 5, the highest one I can get. I like Wisner, the transfer from Texas. He showed some stuff at Texas. But I don't think anybody's going to score more than 20 touchdowns for Florida State this year. So that's going to be a 5-pointer. Usman Kroma scoring more than 8 touchdowns. I'll give an evaluation of 3. I think Usman is going to play a lot more. Wisner is RB1. But I think Usman Kroma is going to be RB1 by the end of the season. So I think that he's going to have opportunities to go up over 8 touchdowns. I'm going to give you that evaluation of 3. Deuce Robinson over 10 this upcoming season. I'm going to give an evaluation of 1 or 2. I'm going to allow that in. Deuce Robinson is going to be the number 1 target on offense. He's a great red zone target. The guy has a catch radius of 1,000,000 miles. But Ashton Daniels, I'm not a believer in. So I will give that evaluation of 1 or 2 points. So we're going to consider that 3 different I do declares. I will have them booked before the end of the next live show. And you'll see that listed, Thomas. You're going to be 109, 110, 111. Thank you for the $5 holler. Very much appreciate your generosity. Thomas Coker, Minnesota, Special Olympics, proceeds. Thank you, Mr. I appreciate it, sir. Very much appreciate it. All right, we've got the Eva Badger, $2 holler. Wisconsin over and under win total is 6.5. And the Minnesota Golden Gophers win total is 6 or 5.5, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's insanity out there. It's absolutely insanity out there. I don't understand it. I don't get it. The Gophers got a better roster this year than they have last year. Badgers, they got an easier schedule this year than last year. I don't understand it, Evo Badger. You must be paying off Vegas big time. Thank you, Ryan Willie. Thank you so much for the $2 holler. We've got Heartbreak 25. He's questioning the Gophers. $5 holler. Greg, you said the Gophers have more talent than Penn State because Penn State has a lot of Big 12 players. Now that Big 12 is underrated, BYU simply lacks big wins. At the end of the day, when I am giving credit to some teams and taking credit away from others, it's the eye test. It's the fat guy from Minnesota's eye test. I don't want to, I look at the strength of schedule and all that stuff. Sure, we have to, but I don't want to get so obsessed with it. BYU passed the eye test for me last year. Bear Bachmeier, true freshman, come on, man. And he was not an early enrollee. I cannot believe the disrespect that Bear Bachmeier gets out there. It is stunning. BYU cannot. I don't get it. BYU has to be top 13, top 12 team in the country at the beginning of the season. You know what? I am not. You've all convinced me. I am going to do a PATC top 25 before week 0. I got to do it because I got to have you guys understand where my Greg the Gold brain is at this moment. So we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to do it. As far as the Gophers, yeah, what can I say? What can I say? I think the Gophers... Look, I predicted Penn State to finish ahead of the Gophers. I got them at 6. I got Minnesota at 7. But that's the best I can do, Heartbreak 25. That's the best I can do to separate the Nittany Lions from my beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers. Thank you for the $5 holler. Appreciate it very much. Look? And now I'm going to get the Big 12 fans mad at me. Now I'm going to get the Big 12 fans mad at me. I don't think the middle of the Big 12 is as good as the middle of the Big 10 or the SEC. But come on. BYU was a very good team last year. The Red Raiders were a great team last year. They got throttled by Oregon. That happens. It happens in the play. It happens. Indiana throttled Alabama. Are we going to just throw out all the SEC? No, we're not. Oh, I'm not. Some of you might. Like, BYU, come on. Look what they're bringing back. And not to have them in the top 20? That is... I'm sorry. No. BYU is definitely a top 20 team. And Louisville is definitely a top 25 team. And Miami is definitely a top 5 team. I'm trying to give a little love to the Big 12 and ACC. Love, not out of charity, but they deserve that love. It's obvious. But I'm always going to have most of the people here giving me an elbow. Jason Spangler got to go under Minnesota. Come on, man. Oh, boy. I cannot wait. Come on. Let's get the season started. Let's go. MBM, Bear's older brother Hank did worse consecutively. You are correct on that. He had one really good season at Boise State. Then he went to Louisiana, finished up at Wake Forest. You are correct, MBM. I like to disagree with Mr. Cowboy, but he's correct. But again, I don't think you can match up that DNA lineage and say that Superman... Look, did Superman's brother, was he Superman too? No, he wasn't. I don't think so. Did he have a brother? That's beside the point, MBM. That is beside the point. We got a $5 holler super chat. We got a Marshall fan and not a Sperry fan. Interesting. Marshall was not in Tallahassee when you evaluated the Florida State quarterbacks. This guy won a natty in FCS. He will win the job by season's end in Sperry transfers. That is very interesting. Very interesting. Now, that is a very interesting comment. You are correct. You are. I'm not saying you might be correct with the predictions there. Thomas is on something, or he's on to something, and I think he might be on to something. Very interesting comment. Thank you, Thomas Coker. That's why I love doing a national show. I only could have done a national show. I understand what you are laying down. Just something else, another storyline that we got to follow closely here at PATC. Thank you, Coker. I appreciate it. I love those type of comments. Now that yeah, I understand what he's saying. I get it. Sam Marshall's best talent at quarterback needs to learn the system and stay healthy. Thank you, Sam. Any Big Ten fan wants to give you grief about player talent, just remind them that the Big Ten hasn't produced a legitimate NFL quarterback since Tom Brady. Well, you know what, Jason Spangler? Do you know what? Our beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers hasn't produced an NFL quarterback since... hasn't had a quarterback drafted since... But yet, we've got Drake Lindsay, Jason. We've got Drake Lindsay. Buckle up, Mr. Spangler. Buckle up. Superman's brother was incarcerated for tax evasion, I believe. Okay, I don't want to go there. CFB Plus is in the house. Kenneth Maynard, BYU is a top 20 team. So is SMU in Louisville. Mohr Simmons, come on, Miami, get in the fight. Okay. Let's talk about it here. So we talked about, we had an early P Cloak and Dagger episode 69 earlier today. And we have been told that a couple of ACC, those with interest of a couple of ACC schools are getting into the battle, engaged in the battle, and going to try to do what they can to defeat this bill or at least rip out the 19-5. We were told about this earlier 2 days ago. We could not talk about it in specifics yesterday on a live show. But I was given the okay to talk about sort of in general what we're trying to report. Those with interest at Clemson are getting on the horn and talking to congressional staff members of U.S. House of Representatives in the state of South Carolina, not only in South Carolina, but mainly in South Carolina, and are going against this PCSA. Now, not all the messaging, or barely any of the messaging, has to do with the 19-5. But they're using all these, they do not want this thing to go forward. Clemson they do not want that 19-5 to remain in place. But just like the Big Ten and the SEC, they have to be careful with their messaging. Not to the extent of the Big Ten and the SEC, but Clemson does not want that 19-5 in there. They got very powerful people that represent Clemson. A couple of them in particular within the Republican Party. They're making their voices known that 19-5 is unconstitutional. You can get it out now, or we will rip it out later. Now, Clemson is going to do this quietly. They're not, don't believe they're going to have a task force. Clemson and Florida State did it differently when it comes to suing the ACC, and they're going to do it a little bit differently than Florida State. There is no right way, wrong way, it's just going to be different. The other school, interest around money interest, political interest around Georgia Tech, the city of Atlanta. You're starting to see it for a lot of, but the main reason, again, nobody's going to win the day on a message of Georgia Tech going out there and saying, you need to switch that 19-5 because you're taking away our chance of possibly going to the Big Ten. That's not how it gets done. It's Georgia Tech saying, this bill doesn't quite serve our interests. We think there can be a better bill that serves more of our interests in the next Congress and House, Congress and Senate. So therefore, for those who disagree with the bill, that want this voted down because of Georgia Tech's interest, let's get on the horn. Let's get the lawyers, get ready and prepared. And that's what people are doing around Georgia Tech. Now that one may become public. I think it will. I said earlier today in our early P Cloak and Dagger episode that we had heard that the senators in the state of Georgia were going to come out against the bill. And one of the senators of Georgia is part of the Congressional Black Caucus, and he came out against this bill a few hours later. I do think the ones that want to defeat this bill for multiple different reasons, I happen to think they're gathering up steam. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I think if there's a more narrow path to getting this bill done, voted on in the Senate, and I think it's becoming the time. We're winding down here. It's got to get done by Saturday. And here's the thing, if the Senate, if Cruz and Cantwell don't think they can get this passed in the Senate, or at least with enough votes to really give it momentum into the House, are they willing to deal, are they willing to negotiate at all anymore? Because they've said the pencils are down. They're not going to be doing any more negotiating. It's pass or fail at this point. And I think the odds of this bill failing are starting to grow once again. And now here is the key question. What does early 2027 look like if this bill does not pass the Senate, the House, and it gets signed by the President Donald Trump? What does early 2027 look like? We're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. But what does it look like? In some ways, depending on your interest, it's going to look a little bit better in 2027. If we're going to do a congressional action, some of these subjects are going to get more of a push, and some of these ideas are going to get drawn back a bit. I think it's a midterm, and usually the midterm, the political party that does not occupy the White House usually does really good in the elections. I think the chances are the Democrats will probably take back the House and possibly the Senate. It could go either way. It's probably going to end up close to 50-50 either way. Can you get a congressional bill passed in 2027? Who are going to be the senators? It ain't going to be Cruz and Cantwell. They're probably going to give up on this. Cody Campbell's going to have to probably bring more money to the table. Is he going to do it? But besides the congressional action, okay, so we're doing a lot of pretending right now. It is August 6th. I happen to believe, I think a lot of people are reporting the same thing, that PCSA, the chances are increasing at this time that it's not going to make it through the Senate, the House, and get on the president's desk. What would the Big Ten and the SEC do then in 2027? Because some of what they wanted may not be reached, and what they got in this PCSA might not be reachable in 2027. A cap on how much money you spend on the $48.8 million. I mean, all that is in complete jeopardy. The antitrust exemption. There might be a demand. There might be a demand of we got to have a national collective bargaining agreement. We got to have unions and all that. But that's not even plausible at this point. There's not going to be a change in the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, possibly until the next presidential race, which is 2028. So congressional action may not be there to solve the issues, or at least try to solve the issues. So what then happens? These conferences go into their silos. The cautious ones, but not the extreme ones, but they start trying to see if they can put rules into place that will hold up in the courts as a conference. They're probably going to give that a go, ladies and gentlemen, if this PCSA doesn't pass. And what about conference membership? Focusing on the Big Ten for a moment. The Big Ten probably going to sit there in early 2027 and go, man, we're probably not going to be able to get anything passed, not anything that we can agree with. We're going to have to go in our silo. If Congress picks this up again, do we take something off the table? Do we take that number 19 off the table? Do we do it would not be if you want to call it a quick strike, you can still call it a quick strike. But do we expand to 20 and take that number 19 off the table? Do we do our last targeted expansion for this generation? Because the Big Ten has been told, they've been seeing the data, they've been seeing the numbers, they want to create more content, they're going to have a new media rights package, they want to get into the Southeastern Conference, they want new markets. They believe they're going to make way more money, they're going to make even more money on the next expansion, just like they did the previous one. They're not going to dilute the Buckeyes, they're not going to dilute Penn State, they're not going to dilute Michigan. This is what the Big Ten truly thinks. They might be right, they might be wrong. They've always wanted to expand again to get to the southeastern part of the country if they can't get Notre Dame. Do they take 19 off the table from the next Congress? And another major question is, does the SEC and the Big Ten figure out how to at least get some sort of representation to their student athletes. Carve out some sort of representation for the student athletes. I'm not talking about a traditional bargaining table that the NBA and all that in NFL has, but something more to give their protection if the courts come after them, if the lawyers come after them, if state law comes after them. Because they've both been working on this. Both conferences, just in case this congressional action does not get passed early 2027. If this bill doesn't pass, 2027 is going to be a crazy off season. It's going to be nuts. So buckle up, brace for impact. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Ring that notification bell. It is going to be a crazy off season if this doesn't pass. And right now, it doesn't look like it's going to pass. The PCSA had a very bad day. There are silent voices starting to make their presence known, louder voices starting to make their presence known. CBC, the College Congressional Black Caucus, made their big voice known today. And there's a handful of ACC schools. No way do they want this 19-5. No way. And there's a couple of Big 12 schools that they would rather not see this pass either. That 19-5. So there's a lot. If something has to give in this bill, 19-5 is going to have to be one of those things. But Cody Campbell and Maria Cantwell does not want to see that part of the bill go away. So anyways, that was our peek around the Cloak and Dagger early peek given to you all on episode 69, the members, earlier today. If you want to become a member of our program, go to the link in the description box below the video, hit the link, and become a member. Now, let's go to your comments. Again, super chats, the floor is yours. Your phone calls, the floor is yours. Before we do all that, I just want to make sure, because I've been given a lot of I get a lot of message during the live show, and I thank you for that. Some of you, a lot of them from PATC, and some of them from my sources. Just let me go through this real quick. I do apologize. The Trump administration voices its support for the Protect the College Sports Act. There are still hurdles to clear before it hits the Senate floor, and time is ticking before the summer recess. Brandon Marcello, CBS Sports. Um, Yeah, and I sort of insinuated that phenomenal brew. I yes, I mean yes, and that means the next attempt isn't going to look like this attempt, and some of that would not. The Big Ten and the SEC would not favor that. That's one of the reasons why the Big Ten and the SEC finally flipped to support this bill. Um, they may agree with some of the changes that the Democrats would want in this bill in the next Congress, but some of it they're not going to want. So, are Greg and his predictions real? I just noticed that the show has been labeled by YouTube with AI designation. I had to do that at the beginning of the show. I'm the one that labeled it because Ted Cruz is not really in this car. So YouTube now, you have to, if you use AI in describing a public figure doing something that they did not really do, you have to hit a check box. And I do that. I'm truthful. I don't get in trouble with YouTube. But no, I am real, and my predictions are real, and they're going to be incredible this year. So hopefully that answers that question. Hold on, everybody. I this this news on the Senate making Missouri 1960 Missouri the national champions. Are they trying to take away the national championship of the Minnesota Golden Gophers? Because we're the 1960 national champions. We are Minnesota. I tell you. You know what? I gotta look more into it. I don't want to go off tonight. The Gophers beat Washington in 1960 in the Rose Bowl, I believe. I believe they were the AP and UPI #1 team in the country, and now they're going to try to strip that away. We're not taking the 1960 banner. We're not taking the 1960 off our stadium. We're not doing it. Because Congress, come and get it. Try to take that away from us. God, good grief. Hammer Hennison, $2 holla. I tell you. What is the most famous Gopher ever to play football? Bronco Nagurski. I think that's probably Tony Dungy. who, by the way, led the Big Ten in passing yards in 1975. Thought he was going to should have been drafted as a quarterback, but that did not happen. That's my answer. It just keeps getting colder, Greg, doesn't it? Unanimous consent. Why didn't Minnesota Senators object? Because Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith has never been to a Minnesota Golden Gopher football game. Don't even get me started. All right, let's go to your phone call before I really get upset tonight. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Give us a phone call. The floor is yours. Super chats. The floor is yours. I do want to thank Christopher Hooter. At last, a quarterback drafted.
Call from
Mohr Simmons.
Mohr Simmons, can you hold on for a moment here?
Yes.
I appreciate it. There we go. Christopher Hooter's comment will not pop up. We've got a $2 super chat from the Purple and Gold. We are buffering here. The last quarterback drafted is John Hackinson, 1965. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Well, Drake Lindsay is going to break that. Obviously, he's going to break that streak. More than a couple of NFL draftniks out there have Drake Lindsay as a first-round draft pick next year. Let's hope the Gophers have a season that would propel Drake Lindsay to a first-round draft pick. Things have changed with P.J. Fleck. Mohr Simmons, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, sir?
Well, I'm listening to your show. As usual, it's a good show. One thing I want to say is this bill is really starting to limp. And this bill is limping right now.
Yeah, it is.
And if it do survive and make it over the hump in the Senate, it's for sure going to be on life support in the House because of several reasons. It's going to be so much heat on the House to make changes. If you can't make a change, they're going to kill this bill. And then it's going to force the Big Ten, SEC, Notre Dame, and Tobacco Road. Okay, look here, this is what we got to do. And especially the Big Ten and SEC, you're going to have to get off the porch. If you're a big dog, you're going to have to get off the porch. And you're going to have to go ahead and go in the silo, this realignment, and do what you got to do. Hell or high water, Notre Dame don't want to come to the Big Ten, oh well. If North Carolina's still handcuffed by their state, oh well. You got to start making moves because the reason being, when the next Congress come into play, things going to be totally different.
Yeah.
It's going to be totally different. And what you think you gain right now, you may not get it next time around. So you're going to have to make some moves. You're going to have to make some moves here because this thing is going to die for sure, or you're going to make some changes. You're going to have to be some compromises to make some changes and to move this along. But at the current pace that it's going right now, I don't know. It might make it out of the Senate. It might because it's limping right now.
Yeah, it is.
And right now, you also got to look at whatever the senators that was on that committee for this bill with Ted Cruz and whatever the lady name is. The other senators are getting an earful right now.
Yeah.
And they look and they combing over this bill and they like, man, this don't make no sense, especially the 19 and 5. That don't make sense for nobody. That ain't even a compromise. That is crazy. No football. And let's get away from FSU, Miami, Clemson. You hurting the other schools that want to move up. None of these schools want to stay where they're currently at. They're looking at opportunity to move up. You can't move up like this. You stifling college football. And to be honest, yes, is there some good stuff that was in the bill? Yes, but it also come around to where it's one-sided. It's one-sided. Notre Dame got a get out of jail free card at any time they want to cross over and get into the Big Ten. That's no secret. They the +1. They the 19. But for everybody else, y'all you on lockdown. So this bill is one-sided. Like I said before, when I look at North Carolina Tobacco Road, yes, I understand UNC voted for the passage of this bill. I mean, well, they support the bill. I put it like that. They support it. But, and then at the same token, I hear people saying, well, of course they do it. They had to play the game, but they want to go into the Big Ten or they want to go into the SEC. Man, right now, you at a point where you're going to have to pick a side. You're going to have to pick a side. And Florida State, it shouldn't be a surprise to everyone that Florida State was going to come out guns a-blazing because, dude, we done invested too much money fighting the ACC, going out getting the hospital and building the second hospital. We done showed both conferences we are willing to do whatever to get up where we need to go. Same thing, Clemson. Clemson, I would say this, Clemson have been our ride-or-die partner in this whole thing about the ACC. So I like Clemson. Clemson ride with us. Question I have right now, and I hear people say, well, Miami is in the background. Well, I don't hear nothing about Miami. Well, they didn't do nothing when we was fighting the ACC. They stayed back. Matter of fact, they voted to sue Florida State. Right now, if Miami is with us, step up to the plate, get in the fight.
Yeah, I think they are in the fight. We just haven't heard it, and they've got a completely different...
That's the part we haven't heard.
Yeah.
We haven't heard nothing. It's crickets.
Yeah.
Now, Georgia Tech, everybody gonna say, well, Alabama. I mean that Georgia runs the state, and you, of course, Georgia Tech is small fry, but even little Georgia Tech is gonna do their part. Okay, I was expecting that at least Miami. I knew Clemson gonna ride with us. I expected Miami to be right up front, ride with us. Don't be in the rear. Come on up here to the front. That's what I'm talking about. But that's all right, Greg. I'm going to get off because I don't want to get riled up. I'm on my blood pressure medication right now.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Appreciate it, sir.
Okay.
Beautiful call. Beautiful call by the legend.
Call from
Fred.
Fred, thanks for calling, Fred. Can you hold on for a moment, please?
Yes, I can.
I do appreciate it. Christopher Hooter. Super chats, as you know, supersede everything else. People giving their hard-earned money to keep this channel afloat. I do appreciate it, Christopher Hooter. $2 holler. He's got something to say. If PCSA fails, silo. Congress can't let that happen. Well, I think they might let that happen because Then I think, you know what? We've learned a lot today. I think we're going to know even more tomorrow, obviously, because tomorrow is Friday. We'll see if they can get a vote in the Senate. But now there's a lot of pressure on the senators, the Democratic senators, on this. You've seen Tommy Tuberville and more things trying to get in and say, look, we're against this bill for A, B, C reasons. And now you stop now not to even get to the House. The incentive for these Democratic senators to vote on it now, it's less than before. Because motivationally, what are they getting politically out of this? Thank you, Christopher Hooter. Thank you for the $2 holler. I appreciate it. Mayor McCheese on the question of who's the most famous Golden Gopher. Bruce Smith. Bruce Smith. Yeah. 1941 Heisman winner, running back, Minnesota Golden Gopher. The most famous part about Bruce Smith is his Heisman speech was done right after Pearl Harbor, 1941. So remember, it was December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor attack on Japan on the United States, and Bruce Smith was getting his Heisman Trophy early in December. So if you want to check out a momentous, epic Heisman speech, check out Bruce Harris, University of Minnesota. Anyways, thank you, Fred. Thank you for your wait. I appreciate it. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. I think I know a lot about politics, but I don't. But I'll speak anyways. My judgment is if we have to go into 2027, and it's essentially a divided government where the Democrats control one part and the Republicans control another.
Yeah.
Our president hasn't shown a lot of belief and interest in bipartisan efforts. Recently, there was a housing bill that had strong bipartisan support. He couldn't bring himself to sign it. He allowed it to become law without his signature. This is a Republican production right now, but if the Democrats get either the House or the Senate, then it's going to be even more bipartisan, and I don't know how you can expect to have success at that point. I mean, I think what they would have to do if it came to that, if we couldn't get anything done this year, is to go ahead and do the realignment, show the support they've been showing to the schools that want to join their conferences, get that done while they assess what they really have going legislatively. It's going to take, maybe a few months to figure out where we're at with that. So, I would handle that first and realize low expectations for legislative effort next year.
Yeah, I would too. So that means we're going to have a wild 2027 because I think the conferences are going to take over more of their own sovereignty, and we don't know where that's going to be heading to. So 2027 is going to be crazy if this doesn't pass. Go ahead, sir.
No, I think you're right on that. They're not sure what would work, but they're going to try to figure out a way where they can do something where the courts will support them in something that they do.
Yes.
And they may be able to do that, and they may not be able to do that. But that's gonna, not gonna happen in a day or a week or a month. And so it's kind of like do what you can do right now in terms of getting the schools set up who want to join your leagues, but then assess very, very carefully. What is the possibility of legislative action of a bipartisan nature? And at this point, I think the Democrats, you're right, they don't have a high incentive right now because they feel somewhat confident that they're going to have more of a voice in 2027 than they do now.
Yeah.
So as a result, it's kind of like we might have missed the time opportunity now, and it may take until 2028, when one party controls everything again, to have a real chance at coming up with some, antitrust action.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I agree with everything you just said, Fred.
Well, that's unfortunate in one sense, but hey, it's kind of like they were trying to do a hard thing anyways, and if it doesn't work, they're going to try even a harder thing. Mm-hmm. In terms of trying to find a path that they can get some opportunity to govern, as opposed to what they've been doing the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And besides, if Congress can take away Minnesota's 1960 championship, they can do anything.
Yeah.
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 So I don't know if you can rely on that, but I just think we're going to know in the next few days if anything's going to come this year, and if not, you just have to write it off, and do something that you can do.
Yeah. Beautiful, Fred.
Okay.
Thank you,
take
sir.
care. Good talking with you.
Great call, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Boiled Sports. Hold on.
Call from
Jeff Fuller.
Jeff Fuller, can you hold on for just 1 second, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I very much appreciate it. Boiled Sports, that's a great, tremendous Purdue Boilermakers YouTube channel. Go check out Boiled Sports. His comment, quote, any publicity is good publicity, ... except bad publicity. Boiled Sports Analytics. Okay, sorry. It just, that whole, anyways, excuse me, I'll be more professional. Jeff Fuller, thank you for calling. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Hey, Greg. Been an interesting couple of weeks here, and
yes,
I don't know what your track record is when you threaten to eat a cheeseburger or a double cheeseburger, but
I've only eaten one.
Again, I don't know what you've only eaten one. Again, we'll see what what happens with this one. I just have one favor to ask you. Will you please promise me that if BYU wins a national championship, you will eat a double cheeseburger?
Yes, I will. Look,
oh, yes.
Yeah, I will. I'll book that in. Look, this year. I'm not going to say forever, but hey, Mr. Fuller, I don't know what's going on at BYU, and I said this way before you called. I said this on the show today. If you missed it,
no, I heard it.
I don't understand what's going on here. BYU, I mean, they got a lot of production coming back. They've got a lot of good play. Why? I don't quite understand what's going on. What is going on, Mr. Fuller?
Well, welcome to the world of the BYU fan. What other team finished 11th in the country? Is third in returning snaps in the nation, is top 20 in overall returning production, and goes down in the next iteration of the polls. It's finished on the bubble of the playoff 2 years in a row. I mean, it's just part and parcel of being a BYU fan. Part of that is being in the Mountain Time Zone. Part of that is being in the Big 12. Part of that is, there's a lot of people who still hate that BYU won a national championship, 40 years ago, and are still hold it against us, even though last time I checked, it wasn't BYU that gave themselves the national championship. It was the AP voters and the coaches poll. It wasn't a split vote. Yes, in retrospect, some people feel it was controversial. And that's always good for for fodder. It always comes up. Washington fans say, "Oh, we should have won," but they were invited to play BYU. So was Oklahoma. Both of those teams were 2-3, and they decided to play each other because they were darn sure that Michigan was going to beat BYU. Michigan was getting back some of their players that had been injured through most of the year, and Michigan didn't have a great year. Harbaugh was injured. That was Jim Harbaugh. He got injured early that year, but they started as a highly ranked team. They were top 10 for much of the year. Fell off a cliff after Harbaugh and a few other key injuries. They got back most of their key players by the bowl game, but not Harbaugh. And but they were pretty darn sure that BYU was going to be beat by Michigan, so they knew the real national championship was going to be between Oklahoma and Washington, but it didn't turn out that way. So again, that's long in the past, but there's still some who hold that against BYU. Other people say there are cultural issues, or there's just that difference of being a religious school, religion that's highly minority, I guess you could say. It's between 1% and 2% of the population is LDS, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So, BYU fans, we're used to it. We're used to being disrespected. We're used to, and I'm going to go back and look through the numbers. I don't think there's ever a year in the history of the AP poll where BYU has finished ranked and started the next season ranked higher.
That is just
no, I'm serious. I'm serious. And BYU's finished ranked, close to 20 times, I think, in the last, 45, 50 years. So it's part and parcel of being a BYU fan. One thing you did not catch, you read that Matt Hayes article, and he talked about, Notre Dame had 8 body bag games before matching up against Miami.
Yeah.
BYU at BYU is considered a body bag game by Matt Hayes. That wasn't stated, and that was glossed over. But that's how.
I should have said something, but I was having too much fun with the article. But yeah, you're right. It's absurd. Yep.
So, and again, thank you for standing up for BYU. And I think the AP voters might put us a spot or two higher. I'm predicting 12 or 13. But again, below where we finished last year. So I think that's just sort of part of it. And, you start the race a little bit behind and gotta catch up and again, BYU has not crossed the finish line in the big game recently. And, so I'm excited to get Notre Dame to Provo. I'm excited for a chance to get back to the Big 12 championship game. And hopefully the playoff and make some noise there. Getting back to the PCSA, I'm still trying to figure out what happened there at the end. Why, after everyone said it was dead, did all of a sudden the Big Ten and the SEC say, "Oh, we support it now"? We got this number up a little bit on NIL, and so now we support it. That didn't seem to pass the smell test. Are they, is there this sort of okey doke of, hey, we know it's too late, and it's never going to get through, and time kills all things. It's never going to make it before the recess. So optics, we gotta say we support it. That's one thing. What do you think there? Is that what happened, or was it the threat from Trump?
Well, Ross Dellinger said something really interesting on his podcast, College Football Inquiry, because Godfrey and Andy Staples were asking Dellinger, was it really because of the threat of the President Trump to go on his social media? Is that what really made the Big Ten and the SEC back down in support? And Ross Dellinger, in so many words, said, no, that's not the reason why. But the Big Ten and the SEC did get threatened that they were going to be pulled up in front of Congress and asked why they sabotaged and defeated this bill, and why did they kill it, and why, and all that stuff. And the SEC and the Big Ten figured that they got most of what they wanted, so they didn't want to incur that cost. And knowing what's going to probably happen next year, the political changes, they decided to go with the devil that they knew, this bill, then the devil that they don't know, the next bill that's coming up. And the SEC and the Big Ten did get a lot, what they wanted. So,
Yeah, it's interesting, and wouldn't it be ironic that, hey, we finally do agree we've got enough, but because we delayed so long, because we put up such a fuss, because we missed 2 deadlines that the Senate leader set for them, is it now not going to get through this time, and will time kill it as elections come up? It's just been interesting to see, and again, never been a perfect bill. I think we've talked before about some of its pros and cons, and this program has probably addressed those more than anyone. I came up with I'm not saying I initiated the idea, but I started talking about the idea of a cap on conference membership, a few weeks before it sort of ever came up in the bill. Again, not my idea, nothing. I wish I could say I had these amazing sources that told me that that's where, that's where this was going. But I agree, 19 is the silliest number ever. This idea of independence for 5 years, where is that coming from? And again, I think if anything's going to pass, constitutional muster of equal protection, then you have to do something like 20 schools, and there's no you don't treat any independents or G5 schools different than any Power 5 schools. That you just cap, say you cap at 20. Power leagues can trade schools. They can bring people up. They can raid from each other. They can backfill from the G5. But again, there must be enough people in there that just absolutely do not want that to happen, that they're willing to kill it completely if that's still in there. So again, everyone may be right that that's just something, a fight they're going to live to fight another day and fight that one in the courts, and we'll just see. I think so. Equal, and this equal protection and freedom of association. I'm getting back to the BYU fan, maybe the battered fan syndrome, or the quote unquote persecution complex that some people say that people of my faith or my school have. But you've talked for a long time. This school is a Big Ten school. This school is not. This school is, and I'm trying to see at what point would BYU ever be a quote unquote Big Ten school? Is there any level of value, short of Notre Dame, where, Notre Dame's AAU now, BYU, in the academic world is a great school, great, it's hard to get into, high average scores, but it's a teaching institution. It's not a major research institution. I know that's something that has been important to the Big Ten and formerly the Pac-12. Stuart Mandel has famously said that, the Pac-12 could have added BYU at any time to increase their value. Yes. But they never did, and they never would, and I think we know why. And so that's where I'm wondering, is there, there's no religious institutions in the Big Ten or in the SEC, no schools that are, that are religious institutions. You've got SMU, you've got TCU, you've got Baylor, you got BYU, I guess Liberty at a lower level. Is there any place for religious institutions within the Power Two? Because so far the SEC and the Big Ten seem to say no. And is that, this freedom of association, is this quote unquote freedom of discrimination at some point? Obviously they take in Notre Dame, and so they could say, of course it's not just religion. But that's the frustration from a BYU fan of, is there a path into the P2, even if there's no cap ever? What is there a path for any religious school short of being the most valuable brand in the land, which Notre Dame has earned over the last 100 years or so? Well, I'd love to hear your commentary on that. And again, I've probably rambled on enough.
Okay, I appreciate it, sir. I'll answer it off the line. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Greg. Have a good one. Yep.
Jump forward. When I say when I say school is a Big Ten school, I probably should clarify that I say a school is a Big Ten school when I know that currently the Big Ten presidents thinks a school is a Big Ten school. I'm basing on what I know, what I believe to know, what the Big Ten presidents believe. I don't necessarily get too much into the metrics. You never see me put up a spreadsheet examining exactly how much expenditure, research expenditure your school does. I talk about it from, because again, that is a pretty important metric. But there's metrics that we do not know about. When it comes to AAU, for example, there are metrics that we just don't know. AAU is a private organization. They get to select their membership how they want to select it. Here is a report from Brett McMurphy a couple of years ago. AAU membership is not a requirement to join the Big Ten, sources told Action Network. Maybe AAU status is a preference, but solid academics are measured in a variety of ways, sources said. And then it talks about the 16 members. This was before they included Oregon and Washington. And I've heard the same thing over many, many years. In fact, people would say AAU is a requirement, but Notre Dame is the exception. That was before Notre Dame became AAU. And I always said Notre Dame is not the only exception. I mean, there's other Oklahoma would have been an exception. If Texas and Oklahoma would have called the Big Ten and not the SEC, Texas and Oklahoma would have been Big Ten bound. Let's be honest. And Oklahoma is not really considered a Big Ten school by the Big Ten presidents. So to get back to the question of what would it take for BYU to be considered a Big Ten school? I have never heard of BYU, and I could, being on the Big Ten candidate list. It doesn't mean that they're not on there or they've never been on there. No one's ever, and I've had 1,000 conversations. It doesn't mean that the people that I talk with are correct. They're not infallible. We did hear that Utah, for example, was on the Big Ten candidate list. We still believe they are. And then a couple of months later, Brett McMurphy made that statement. Going back to Georgia Tech. I mean, Georgia Tech was targeted by the Big Ten back in 2010, 2011, when Virginia and North Carolina both said no to the Big Ten. And then it was Georgia Tech up next, and they basically said not interested. And then it went to Maryland, and then Rutgers. What would it take for BYU to be a Big Ten university? They would have to consider BYU a value add when it came to something other than their athletic program. Something in the research. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to reach a certain research expenditure dollars. That's one of the metrics. That is not the most important. It's not like the only metric. What is the capacity for BYU to increase their research, and what are they doing research? The main reason why Miami became AAU is because the Big Ten presidents voted for them to become AAU, because Miami was starting to do more this important research from the Big Ten's point of view on genetics and genome and all that stuff, things I do not understand, but to the point where Michigan regards Miami as Little Michigan. So that's how Miami, we talked about it 3 or 4 years ago, before their football program became elevated. We talked about how Miami was at the very top below North Carolina and Notre Dame in the top of the candidates list. Miami's research is something that the Big Ten would love to bring in to the conference if everything else would work out. So BYU would have to offer something up that is, we can rip on Rutgers, but Rutgers' research is really huge. Maryland's research is really huge. These schools, Nebraska, they've had a lot of internal discussions about how they might be left off. There was a lot of fear because their research, and all that, but now they've improved and they're able to include all their Kearney and Omaha and all their state colleges in the state of Nebraska are now under one umbrella when it comes to research. So that's improved Nebraska. The religious aspect, again, there is politics involved. I mean, you got to have, right now, the Big Ten, you got to have 13 out of 18 Big Ten presidents to approve. And so the religious aspect could probably hurt at some point. Notre Dame's religious aspect has probably hurt. It has hurt them at some point years ago. But it is BYU's ability for possible unique research or growing research. In my opinion, and I just say, because BYU's value is incredible. I mean, BYU, it's their brand, it's their international. When Brett Yormark talks about the Big 12 going internationally, he's got a couple of huge thoroughbreds, Utah and BYU, that's going to help them. The BYU go, the Big 12 go internationally in the next decade. The thing is I don't like this idea that everything remains the same, because nothing ever remains the same. That's why I'm really against the 19-5. I don't think Ohio State should have to be bolted to Minnesota for as long as the eye can see because of some congressional action. I hope they remain with Minnesota, but they should not be by congressional law. This is heavy regulated public universities, but there are in a lot of different, these universities are in a lot of different associations, not just an athletic association. They're in different associations, private, nonprofit associations, organizations. And so BYU 50 years from now could very well be even more impactful on our society and research and academics. And same thing with TCU, same thing with Baylor, this whole thing that we have to bolt everything down because everything now we can't have any more freedom of association within athletic conferences because it's gotten I don't think anything should be nothing is static. Nothing. I'm so against this. And again, from a University of Minnesota aspect, from a Golden Gopher, this bill is probably a great scenario for Minnesota. But so what? This BYU should not be put in a box. Nobody should be put in a box and say that's it. I know change hurts people. I get it. It has hurt some institutions out there. I get it. I hope they come back. I hope they get more opportunities in the future. But again, on that, it's an incentive to try to do better in your athletic programs, in your front porch of your university, your research, your academic, try to become more valuable, try to treat your student athletes better than the other schools. And you got to have that motivation. You got to have that incentive that drives innovation, but this doesn't do it. 19-5 don't do it. I am so against it. probably more than it doesn't work. It ain't going to work. It doesn't work. And it's going to be unconstitutional, in my opinion. But again, sometimes it's harder for certain people to argue certain points. It was easier for Richard Nixon to open up China than a Democratic president, a president from the Democratic Party back in those days. Right? It's difficult for the Big Ten and the SEC to stand up there and say, no, you cannot allow us not to expand. This battle has to come from somewhere else. And it is coming from somewhere else. And there's a lot of battles out there. Again, we go back to the student athlete. How should they be treated? They should be under a collective bargaining agreement. They should have more representation. And this bill, which has been argued by Cantwell and Cruz, does still set up a pathway to CBA down the line, but people don't really believe that, or not enough of them. So that's my answer, Jeff Fuller. When I say Big Ten, that's a Big Ten university. I should be more clear in the future. When I say that, I really mean that the Big Ten presidents have considered, that they believe that's a Big Ten university, a university that can come in and it's all ready to go. It's gonna give us increased value in the billions of dollars of research, other than the $1 million of athletic. And also be valuable in athletics. But that's a Big Ten university, according to the Big Ten presidents. And I would never sit here and say that BYU is never going to become a Big Ten university. Who knows? The Big Ten could change dramatically over the next 50 years. So, and it probably will. Well, I don't know. Unless this bill passes, who knows? But thank you, Jeff Fuller. Thank you for the phone call. I appreciate it. We've got Kenneth Maynard, $10 holla. There are rumblings in Florida circles that we will claim the Gators the 1984 national championship along with BYU. Gators got declared champs by two selectors. The minor violations back then were 100% legal today, but they weren't legal back in those days. Kenneth Maynard, thank you for the $10 holler. I appreciate it. Go grab that 1984 championship. Go grab it. Missouri has grabbed the 1960 championship. But we're not going to take down that banner, Missouri Tigers. Minnesota is not going to take down. It is up there in the football stadium. It lists all the Big Ten championships, all the national championships. That 1960 is not going anywhere. It's going to stay up there. So Congress, you want to bring the federal troops in a Huntington Bank Stadium to take down that 1960 banner at the beautiful football stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota, you're going to have to get through the fat guy from Minnesota. I'm going to be standing at the 50-yard line with my gold and maroon pitchfork in one hand and the axe in the other, because I can take it out of the trophy case. It's sitting right there, Badgers. We got the axe. I'm going to have the axe in one hand, the pitchfork in the other, and I'm going to tell the federal troops, come and get it, baby. Come and get it. Don't tread on me. All right. Thank you, Kenneth Maynard. Thank you for the $10 holler. It's getting a little bit out of control here in the studios at Peak around the corner. We've got $5 holler from the Heartbreak 25. Holy smokes. One day the Big 12 will produce NFL quarterbacks like Gator legend Danny Wolford, Rex Grossman, Tim Tebow, Anthony Richardson, in whatever ECU does. Heartbreak 25. I think he's throwing an elbow back at Kenneth the Pirate Gator Maynard. Thank you for the $5 Heartbreak 25. Appreciate it. Thomas Coker, $5 holler. What is the number of championships FSU would have won with Peter Warwick and Randy Moss playing together? I don't know. At least one. Randy Moss, phenom, did not quite get to Notre Dame, did not quite get to Florida State, but he got to Marshall. And Peter Warwick, woo! I'm going to say one. I am going to say at least one. Probably one. Thank you, Thomas Coker. Thank you for the $5 holler. Appreciate your generosity. Thank you so very much. We've got Dave B. Super Chat, $2 holler. '84 poll revisiting bully move. University of Washington didn't win the Pac-12. Thank you, Dave B. Thank you, Dave B. Appreciate the $2 holler. Look, you can do whatever you want. 1984, BYU is going to recognize the 1984 national championship, and most people will. 1960, okay, give it to Missouri, but we're going to keep what we think is ours here in the state of Minnesota. And nobody's going to come in Minnesota and take off that banner. Box Lightner. Randy Moss at Marshall was appointment viewing. Absolutely. Randy Moss put on a show at the spring game. Straight cash homie. That is Randy Moss. Greg, those are fighting words. Absolutely. Maybe Greg has an axe to grind. Dante's Inferno Purgatory. ECU developing Big Ten quarterbacks. Keaton Hauser, Illinois. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've been on air for 2 hours and 30 minutes. I think we're going to lock it up. I think we're done with the phone calls and the super chats. Helmer Hennison, Noah Berman, thank you very much. Christopher Hooter, Andrew French, Kenneth Maynard, Thomas Coker, the Evil Badger, Heartbreak 25, Thomas Coker, Helmer Hennison, Christopher Hooter. Christopher Hooter, Kenneth Maynard, Heartbreak 25, Thomas Coker, and Dave B. Thank you guys for your donations. I appreciate you helping us keep the lights on and grow the channel. I want to thank the great phone calls we received tonight. Thursday, August 6th was a great day to talk college football. We did produce an early peak Cloak and Dagger members only episode. So if you are a member of the program, if you have a membership here, go check that out. Early peak Cloak and Dagger member. If you want to become a member of our program, go to the description box below the video. There's a link provided. Hit that link and become a member. We also produce an episode for everybody to watch. Episode 520, early peak, peek around the corner, episode 520 on the Purdue athletic director, the new one, what he said today. Really odd stuff. Go check that episode out. And then we'll see you all tomorrow on a beautiful Friday. Until next time, please keep great care of each other. As always, God, family, Golden Gophers.